You all voted, so here it is. What is the worst paladin you can make in D&D 5e? That's the question I set out to answer. So armed with only my player's handbook and a desire to make dreams come true, or nightmares, either or, I'm going to craft the worst possible armored crusader I can. How low can this paladin go? Let's find out. Just like last time, I'll quickly run through the rules of the challenge so everyone knows what we're working with. I can't multi-class or use equipment paladins aren't proficient in, so no cheesing it with terrible combos. I'm only using the original 2014 player's handbook, nothing else, and I'm not rolling for stats. Sure, I could just say I rolled all 1s and got 3s across the board, but that's neither strategic nor fun. Instead, I'll be using point buy. Last but not least, if my paladin can cast spells of a certain level, I have to have at least one option prepared for that level. But as you'll see, the class kinda does this one for me, so no worries there. With our guidelines established, let's talk about what would make a paladin the worst in D&D 5e. First, they need to be a horrible combatant. Paladins are supposed to be in the middle of the fray, smiting enemies and tanking with a high AC. Ours will do no such thing. Second, their saving throws should be pitiful. This class is especially known for having crazy save bonuses as they get stronger, so we want ours to be as low as possible. Third, we want our charisma and strength skills to be abysmal. Those are the two main stats for paladins, so even if they're okay at things like medicine or arcana, our hero shouldn't be able to fill their role in the party at all. Now that we know our goals for this build, let's meet our champion. In original 5e, stat boosts are related to your race, not background, so we want to avoid choices that boost our strength or charisma. Forest gnomes are one option. Intelligence and dexterity aren't the worst stats to increase, but gnomes get advantage on all wisdom, intelligence, and charisma saves against magic, so we'll pass. Instead, we're choosing a high elf. +2 to dexterity isn't ideal, but it's better than strength, and +1 to intelligence is great. Things like dark vision, proficiency in perception, and their trance are small bonuses, but not really a big deal. And while we do get advantage against being charmed, that doesn't tend to come up very often. We can also choose a cantrip and an extra language. We'll go with light and goblin, respectively. With that all set, you can now meet Buddy, the paladin. He's ready to make new friends and take on the world, though with the stats we're about to give him, he's probably better off staying at home. As a refresher, when you're using point buy, every stat starts at 8, and you can spend points to increase them. The higher the boost, the more it costs, but they can't go above a 15 before accounting for any bonuses. With that said, here's how our paladin's ability scores shook out. Strength is what Buddy will primarily use to attack, so that's only going up to a 9. Mechanically, there's no difference between having an 8 or a 9, since both will give him a -1 to anything strength-based he attempts. So even if he wants to smite, good luck hitting a dragon with that bonus. Dexterity will be a little higher, starting at a 12, and with our Elven boost, it's up to a 14. His dex saves will be better, but not great, and while we will be giving him a weapon he can use it on, trust me, it's not going to matter. More on that later. Constitution affects your hit points, and as one of the party's tanks, traditionally, paladins would like to have a lot of those, but Buddy is not a traditional paladin, so his con score is an 11. That means he'll add nothing to his standard hit point increases as he levels. He's starting with just 10, and over time, that's going to add up to a lot of lost HP. Just how we want it. Intelligence and wisdom are both reverse dump stats. We have to put points somewhere, might as well be here. Wisdom will be a 15, and after his elven genes kick in, his intelligence will be a 16. Not ideal. I'm especially upset that his wisdom saves will end up being pretty good, but we can't make everything an 8. Better to let his nature and animal handling skills run wild than his persuasion and athletics. That leaves charisma, and just like strength, we'll give him a 9. This one is a big deal, because a lot of Buddy's abilities will be tied to his charisma score, as well as his spell save DC and hit bonuses. Keeping it this low will have a lot of adverse effects for him down the line. Perfect. Now that his stats are figured out, Buddy needs a background. We went with Folk Hero, mainly because it gives him proficiency in animal handling and survival, 2 wisdom-based skills, but I like to imagine that he was revered in his quiet little hometown, and the moment he left, literally nobody else likes him. Speaking of proficiencies, he gets a few more as a paladin. First are wisdom and charisma saves, bringing the latter to a whopping +1 at first level, and I also chose medicine and religion. Again, not skills your paladin would normally be stoked to have, but if Buddy's going to be a good friend, he has to be able to heal up his new pals too. As for healing, paladins get a good, or in this case, bad, ability called Lay on Hands at first level. Basically, they have a pool of 5 hit points, and as an action, they can use some to heal up an ally or cure them of some kind of ailment. Each time he levels up, it increases by 5. So eventually, he'll be a pretty good healer by complete circumstance, but we can live with that. Divine Sense is another first level power for paladins, allowing Buddy to reach out and learn if there are any fiends, celestials, or undead within 60 feet. Or it would, but he can only use it once per long rest, plus his charisma modifier, which is -1, so 0 times. Usually these things will outright say that you at least get to do it once, but in this case it doesn't. It even says so on D&D Beyond, so I don't know how much more confirmation you can get than that. Buddy has just started and can't even use a core feature of his class. I'm having a lot of fun. Last, but certainly not least, we have to choose his starting equipment. This will determine what weapons and armor Buddy has at his disposal for his entire life. The man's never heard of a shop, I guess. First off, he does sadly get chainmail, bringing his AC to an okay but not great 16. However, not only is that going to be low for a paladin as he gets stronger, but it actually comes with some big drawbacks. He gets disadvantage on stealth checks, and because his strength isn't high enough, it actually knocks 10 feet off his movement speed. So he's going nowhere fast, literally. As for weapons, they give you a few ways to pick your poison. First, you can choose between a martial weapon and a shield, or just 2 martial weapons. Shields increase AC, and we don't want that. So instead, we'll take a net and a blowgun. The net can't deal any damage, just restrain targets, and that's only if we hit with our meager +1 bonus thanks to -1 strength. The blowgun is marginally better. It uses dexterity instead, so with our proficiency bonus, that's a +4. The problem is darts only deal 1 damage every time you hit, plus your dex, so each one is only dealing 3 damage. That's nothing, even for a first level character. But believe it or not, that's actually going to be his best option at the moment. That's because for his second choice, Buddy can select either 5 javelins or 1 simple melee weapon. Javelins use a d6 as their damage die and can be either thrown or thrust, so we'll go with our second choice, and this one is a doozy. We're giving our Crusader a club, the worst melee weapon in the game. With our -1 strength, he'll only be adding +1 to any attack rolls he makes with it. When he gets lucky and actually hits, it deals 1d4 damage, -1, for a max roll of 3. Most of the time, it'll be doing even less than the blowgun, with a lower chance to make contact. Now that our paladin is armed and not so dangerous, he's ready to begin a life of adventure. Let's go level by level and see just how Buddy evolves as he gets stronger, or at least slightly less incompetent. Immediately at level 2, paladins get a bunch of new stuff, which kind of makes you wonder why they didn't just include some of this at first level, but that's besides the point. First up, you need to choose a fighting style. There are 4 options that you can pick, each allowing your character to better specialize in their unique flavor of hitting bad guys with weapons. But Buddy will take great weapon fighting, which lets him re-roll 1s and 2s on damage dice when using a 2-handed or versatile weapon, which he has exactly none of. But he can start calling his club a great weapon to compensate. The worst lies are often the ones we tell ourselves. Next up is spellcasting. Paladins don't get as many spells as wizards and bards, but they can prepare a number each day equal to half of their paladin level plus their charisma. So for Buddy, 1 minus 1. You can't have 0, so for his singular spell, we'll take Purify Food and Drink. This paladin's friends will never eat moldy bread or drink stale ale again. With spell slots, he also gains access to the single most iconic ability this class has, Divine Smite. When Buddy hits with a melee attack, he can imbue his club with holy energy, dealing an extra 2d8 radiant damage at the cost of a spell slot. You can add an extra d8 if it's against a fiend or undead, plus another for each level above first of the spell slot that you expend. Add all that together, and you can deal 6d8 radiant damage on a hit. That's not bad at all. So how will we make this worse for Buddy? For starters, Divine Smite only works with melee weapons, so he'll have to use his club, meaning he'll only get +1 to the attack. You can't smite if you can't hit. But other than that, I won't lie, Divine Smite is pretty crazy. We'll have to take solace in the fact that he'll be missing more often than most, and even when he does get to crank up the radiant damage, he's still only adding a max of 3 bludgeoning damage to the total. So still good, but compared to other paladins, pretty pitiful. Let's move to level 3, which is another big one. No, not because of Divine Health, which makes him immune to disease, as if any DM has ever used a disease as anything but a plot hook. No, he has to take a Sacred Oath, basically how paladins choose a subclass. Each oath gets a host of abilities and spells that define the character moving forward, and there are 3 to choose from. First is the Oath of Vengeance, and we'll be ruling this one out immediately. It focuses on choosing a target and doing everything you can to get that specific individual 6 feet under. For example, you immediately get the ability to have advantage on attack rolls against one creature for a minute. That means more hits and more smites, which are pretty much the best thing Buddy can do, so we'll pass on this one. That leaves the Oath of Ancients and the Oath of Devotion. Both are pretty similar, with abilities that allow you to turn different creatures, gain bonuses against some conditions or damage, and a bunch of useful spells. I think you can make a case for each being worse than the other, but I decided to go with the Oath of Devotion. In my opinion, it complements my bad build better, and I'll point out why as I go along. As part of this oath, we immediately get access to 2 spells, Protection from Evil and Good, and Sanctuary. The first gives any Celestial, Aberration, Elemental, Fey, Fiend, or Undead disadvantage on attacks against Buddy, while keeping him from being frightened, charmed, or possessed by them too. Pretty good against those specific creatures. but it won't stop the neighborhood bandit from stabbing him in the back. Sanctuary causes anyone who attacks the chosen creature to make a wisdom saving throw or have to choose a new target. Of course, that's only a save DC of 9 at the moment, and it doesn't even work against area of effects. And if they decide to attack in the meantime or do anything harmful, that breaks it too. So Buddy won't be getting the best use out of these. Each time he gets new oath spells also corresponds with each new spell level he can cast, so we'll never need to choose higher level spells than we want to just to meet our challenge requirement. And honestly, that's pretty nice. His oath also comes with channel divinity options. Once per rest, he can either gain a sacred weapon or turn the unholy. Sacred weapon will cause one of his arms to shine bright for 1 minute, turning it magical and giving him a bonus to attacks equal to his charisma bonus. Again, a -1, so it's just a simple +1 instead. Not very exciting. Turn the unholy is better. Any fiends or undead within 30 feet have to make a wisdom save or run away for 1 minute. But like with Sanctuary, it's just a DC 9, and any cleric worth their salt can already do this to undead, and even better as they level up. So all in all, 2 lackluster abilities to round out this level and kick us on to the next one. Level 4 brings Buddy's first choice between raising some of his ability scores or taking a feat, which are designed to give him extra abilities and make him more customizable. Normally, I would never consider boosting his stats, but interestingly, we're going to take the ASI. Both of our paladins' dexterity and intelligence sit at 14 and 16, and their modifiers only increase each time they hit an even number, so we can safely boost them to 15 and 17 without Buddy getting any better in any way. Isn't that great? If level 4 was a quick one, level 5 once again brings a bunch of changes. First is his proficiency bonus, which is now +3. While some of his skills do improve, religion is his best at +6, all of his strength and charisma based ones are still in the negatives. Tough. His wisdom save is passable, but even with the boost, charisma saves are still only +2. Again, tough. He gets a small boost to his spell attack modifier and save DC, as well as all of his bonuses to hit with weapons. Not only that, but he can now attack twice on a turn, but only with his club, not the blowgun. It has the loading property, meaning you can only fire it once per action, regardless of how many attacks you have. And do we mention the club is only a +2 to hit? Once more, tough. Finally, he gets 2 more oath spells. Zone of Truth, which causes people to tell the truth, but only if they don't save against his terrible DC, and Lesser Restoration, which can cure things like blinded and poisoned. Buddy is nothing if not a good friend, so it's pretty fitting for him to go around helping his allies with their conditions, which they probably only have because he's so bad at fighting. Level 6 gives Buddy an aura of protection, allowing him and any allies within 10 feet to add his charisma bonus to their saves. You already know this is -1, so they get a +1. Big deal. Imagine if he had a charisma of 18, possible, with a better choice of race and ASI, they'd all be adding +4 to those saving throws. Oh well. He can also finally choose to prepare a second non-oath spell. 6 divided by 2 is 3, -1 for 2. Again, if he had that 18, he'd be preparing 7 by now, but who's counting? Buddy will take Detect Poison and Disease. Nobody is pulling one over on his friends, and how else will he know to use Lay on Hands to cure them of a cold? He's just being a pal. I love level 7. It's one of the main reasons I chose this oath. Buddy now has Aura of Devotion. He and all his nearby best friends can't be charmed. Let's forget for a second that this doesn't come up all that often in play, but as an elf, Buddy already has advantage against being charmed, so this is basically a redundant ability for him. If we had taken the Oath of the Ancients, then at this level, he'd get resistance to damage from all spells, every single one. That's crazy, and it extends to allies within 10 feet too. But don't worry, Buddy will keep that mean vampire from charming you, so he can just bite you instead. Level 8 is another one where we can choose between stat boosts or a feat, and this time we're not raising those ability scores. We're taking the Elemental Adept feat, which appears useful at first, but is completely wasted on Buddy. Essentially, you choose a damage type, and whenever you hit an enemy with a spell that does that type, it ignores resistance. You can also treat 1s as 2s when you roll the damage. Not bad, but only if you can actually deal that type of damage. Buddy currently has no damaging spells, and we're not planning on taking any we aren't forced to, so we'll choose acid damage, and sleep well knowing this feat will never be used. Even better, we can choose it up to 5 times, so as long as we take a different damage type with each selection, we'll be good to go. You'll be seeing this feat again very soon. We can also prepare our third non-oath spell, and we'll choose Detect Evil and Good. It basically does what Divine Sense would have done with Aberrations, Elementals, and Fae thrown in. Good job, buddy. Only took you 8 levels, but you got there eventually. Level 9 brings another boost to our Paladin's proficiency bonus. It's up to +4, and normally this would mean our skills would be getting pretty high, and some are, like Religion and Animal Handling, but 13 out of 18 of them are +3 or worse. You don't need me to tell you, for level 9, that's not very good. And spoilers, they're never getting better. Our club is now +3 to hit, great, and the DC for all of our saving throws is 11. Even with no modifier, you still have nearly a 50% chance of succeeding. That's putrid. Of course, we also get 2 more oath spells, Beacon of Hope, which gives your nearby allies advantage on wisdom and death saves as well as a boost to healing, and Dispel Magic, which dispels magic. Not bad options for our friendly paladin, but then again, when these are some of his best abilities, I think that says a lot about Buddy. At level 10 we get another aura, this time of Courage. He and his nearby friends can't be frightened. Fitting that one so ill-equipped to face danger would rush right at it. He can also prep 4 non-oath spells now, which is exciting. Not as exciting, we'll choose Protection from Poison, as if the many ways he can already deal with it weren't enough. Now that we're halfway through his levels, I'd like to point out that Buddy is sitting on 64 HP. For one of the tanks of the party, that's not great. If they were to face a CR10 Frigimus, it could legitimately down this paladin in a single round. If their constitution was a 16, giving them +3 to the modifier, they'd be at 94 hit points by now. Instead, Buddy continues on, as frail as ever. Level 11 paladins get Improved Divine Smite, which adds a free D8 radiant damage to every hit with a melee weapon. Of course, Buddy still only gets +3 to try and smack somebody with his club, so something tells me he won't be rolling a lot of D8s. Level 12 brings us another feat, and once again, we'll take Elemental Adept, this time for cold damage. As always, this does nothing for us. But don't worry, Buddy can finally prep another non-oath spell. He'll take Create Food and Water. Nobody goes hungry on this paladin's watch. At level 13, Buddy's proficiency bonus is once again getting a boost. Now at +5, he's got a religion score of +8, and not much else. He can add +4 to try and hit with his club or a spell, in theory anyway, and his save DC is a massive 12. His own highest saving throw is Wisdom at +8, if only any of his other ones were worth celebrating too. As for his oaths, he gets 2 4th level spells, and unfortunately, one does damage. The first is Freedom of Movement, allowing him to slip out of obstacles and effects that would otherwise paralyze or restrain him. But the second is Guardian of Faith, which has a pretty straightforward effect. You plop down the Guardian, and whenever someone comes within 10 feet of it, they make a dex save or take 20 radiant damage, half if they succeed. It then sticks around until it's dealt at least 60 points of damage. That's not a bad spell, and it does give him a way to reliably do damage. But once you place the Guardian, you can't actually move it. If we chose an Oath of Ancients, we'd have gotten the 2nd level spell Moonbeam a long time ago, which when upcast can deal similar damage and be moved each turn if you want. We would also get Ice Storm at this level, which has a bigger radius. So even though this is better, it's still lackluster when compared to what could have been. Level 14 gives Buddy Cleansing Touch. Now he can help himself or a friend and one spell that's affecting them with just a single action. How many times can he do this? Did you say an amount equal to his charisma modifier, which is -1, so just once per long rest? Congrats, you got it. He's also up to 6, count 'em, 6 non-oath spells to prepare, so he'll take Daylight with this one. Sure, he can already cast Light, but now Buddy can do it really well, and that's definitely worth it. We're nearing the home stretch, and at level 15, Buddy's Oath gives him Purity of Spirit, permanently putting him under the effects of the Protection from Good and Evil spell. That's pretty good, but like I mentioned earlier, it only works on select types of enemies, and even if they can't do as much to him, it's not like our paladin can fight back either. Level 16 is a quick one. We choose another feat, and you already know it's going to be Elemental Adept with lightning damage this time. He can also prep his 7th non-oath spell, and he'll take Locate Object. Really good for finding his club when the party tries to hide it from him for the 100th time, hoping against hope that he'll pick up any of the weapons they've come across at this point. Sorry team, Buddy will do no such thing. Level 17 is one of the last big ones, and that's because it's the final time his proficiency bonus will increase. After this, pretty much all of his major stats and bonuses are set in stone. And I have to say, they're just kind of sad. Let's start with skills. He doesn't have a single one that reached double digits, and because he never increased his strength or charisma, 5 of them are in the negatives. Buddy is a liability anytime he opens his mouth. Similarly, he doesn't get a single saving throw up to +10. Let's really think about that for a moment. If he had a charisma score of 20, all of these would be granted +5. Wisdom and charisma would both be sky high, while intelligence and dexterity wouldn't be too bad either. Instead, this paladin would be lucky to save against almost anything. Imagine facing a lich with DC 20 spells. Good luck. On the flip side, his save DC finishes at a lowly 13, and he only has +5 to hit with his club. Looking at that same lich, he has just a 60% chance of hitting its AC of 17. And God forbid he fights a dragon. If he attacked an adult red, he'd have a greater chance of failing than succeeding. In battle, Buddy is little more than a meat shield for the rest of the party. Of course, he does get his final 2 spells from his oath, and one of them can help. Commune lets him ask his deity questions, though really he should be asking his player why they're doing this to him. But more importantly, Flame Strike deals 46 radiant and 46 fire damage to anyone in a 20-foot radius, which is not that incredible, but it's something. It's also why I took the ability score increase way back at level 4. If I had only chosen the Elemental Adept feat, then we would eventually have to choose Fire, which would have helped out with this spell. Now we can avoid it, and Buddy can feel like he matters once or twice a day. Level 18 sees our Paladin's auras increase from 10 to 30 feet, so now he can fit even more friends inside, which he's ecstatic about. He also gets his 8th non-O spell, and we'll choose Heroism. It gives one creature immunity to being frightened, you know, like his Aura of Courage already does, and grants them temporary hit points at the start of each turn equal to, you guessed it, his Charisma modifier. So 1, or maybe even none, it doesn't specify. A completely pointless spell, which he's choosing at level 18. Almost there. The only thing Buddy gets at level 19 is his final feat, Elemental Adept Thunder Damage. That means we've successfully navigated all 5 ASI levels without improving this Paladin in any way, shape, or form. And I'd say that's a feat in itself. See what I did there? For his final 20th level, Buddy gets to prepare one last non-O spell. He'll take Find Steed. So here, at the end of his journey, even if his party abandons him, he can always conjure up a friend. Through his oath, he gets access to its ultimate ability, Holy Nimbus. Once per long rest, he shines with holy light, and anyone that comes within 30 feet of him takes 10 radiant damage. Which, you know, damage is damage, but that's not all. He also gets advantage on saves against spells, but only when they're cast by fiends or undead, but that's not all. It also only lasts for a minute. This kinda sucks. For Oath of the Ancients, you get 10 HP back every turn and can cast action spells as bonus actions, while giving your enemies disadvantage to save against them. And for the Oath of Vengeance, you get to fly 60 feet, and enemies are constantly having to save against being temporarily frightened if they're within 30 feet of you. And if they fail, everyone gets advantage against them until they take damage. Sorry buddy, your oath kinda did you dirty here. But honestly, that's a perfect capstone for our imperfect Paladin. So at the end of the road, where does that leave Buddy? An elf who was revered in his tiny hometown, Buddy wants nothing more than to find new friends. Unfortunately, a complete lack of social skills makes this difficult, and so Buddy desperately tries to win people's approval by conjuring them food, checking if it's poisonous, and doing his best to shield them with his auras. When he wanders onto the battlefield, our Paladin is pretty useless. Yes, he can smite, but only if he hits first with the +5 he gets for his club. He can cast a few spells that might do something productive, but mostly they just help him make friends, literally and figuratively. Sure, he can take a few hits for the party, and with an AC of 16, he'll be getting rocked a lot more than your average tank, but unfortunately, he only has 124 hit points to spare. But he can't fight, is too weak for his armor, has mostly worthless skills, and doesn't even get to use Divine Sense. He truly is the worst Paladin in D&D 5e. That's enough Buddy for one lifetime, so we'll call it there. Thank you so much for watching. I had a lot of fun putting together what I think is a really, really bad Paladin. But I'd love to hear ways you think he could be even worse in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, leaving a like is always appreciated, and you should consider subscribing to the Bard's College. I make videos like this one, all about D&D, DMing, and whatever else I can think of in between. So if you like this one, there's more to come. But for now, good luck, and remember, crit your players.